She was 7 months pregnant when her husband ripped away more than just her dress. He ripped away her dignity, her trust, her entire future, in front of 400 people. But what he didn't know, his father-in-law had been watching him, waiting, building. And by sunrise, everything would collapse. This is the story of the greatest revenge you'll ever hear. And trust me, you need to stay until the end. She was the kind of woman who made wealth look effortless. Not because she was born into money, though she was. Not because she was beautiful, though she undoubtedly was. Lise Montgomery possessed something far more powerful: grace under pressure. The quiet strength of someone who genuinely believed the best in people. At 32 years old, she represented everything her billionaire husband Garrett Blackwood claimed to want: elegance, family values. A woman who could stand beside him at galas and charity events without needing his validation. She wore custom gowns, carried designer purses, and laughed at the right moments. But beneath the silk and champagne, Lise was something even more dangerous. She was kind. She remembered the names of servers. She sent handwritten thank you notes. She genuinely cared about the causes she championed. The pregnant belly, hidden beneath that $14,000 custom ivory gown, held something she loved more than life itself: their daughter, arriving in just over 2 months. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. The night was perfect. Everything was supposed to be perfect. The Grand Monarch Hotel's ballroom glittered like something from a fairy tale. Imported Venetian crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across white marble floors. Gardenias and white roses, the same flowers from her wedding. A deliberate choice that now feels like another lie. Perfumed the air with sickly sweet suffocation. The string quartet had been flown in from Vienna. For one evening. The Blackwood Technologies Anniversary Gala was the social event of the season. 5 years of innovation. 5 years of growth. 5 years of lies that Lise didn't even know she'd been living. She stood near the 12-foot ice sculpture, one protective hand on her swollen belly, wearing that custom gown that cost more than most people make in 3 months. She felt beautiful. She felt safe. She felt like the wife of a tech visionary who loved her. She was wrong about all of it. Then came the tug on her dress. The first tug was subtle. Lise spun around, expecting to find a server needing to pass, perhaps someone whose heel had caught her train. Instead, she found Vanessa Drake. 29 years old. Vice President of Marketing. Perfect red lipstick the color of fresh blood. Perfect blonde waves that probably took 2 hours to achieve. And a smile. God, that smile. Stretched across her face like a wound. "What are you doing?" Lise's voice came out wrong. Too high. Too confused. Too fragile. The second tug came faster. Vanessa's fingers gripped the zipper at Lise's back. The metallic rasp echoed through the ballroom as if the entire universe had paused to witness this one moment. The music stopped. 400 heads turned in perfect synchronization. "Let's see what Garrett's been stuck with for 5 years. Vanessa's voice echoed through the room, amplified, deliberate, planned. "Let's see what he's been forced to come home to every single night while dreaming of something better." The dress fell. Lise grabbed for it with desperate hands, catching some of it, missing the rest. Her ivory slip exposed. Her maternity bra with its functional clasps visible to everyone. Her pregnant belly, the stretch marks she'd been so self-conscious about, suddenly on display under the chandelier light. She heard gasps. She heard laughter, actual laughter from people she'd hosted at charity events, people she'd considered friends. Click. 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 400 phones recording. 400 people capturing her humiliation from every angle. She searched the crowd for her husband. Her eyes swept across familiar faces, board members she'd entertained at dinner parties, investors she'd charmed at fundraisers, wives she'd organized charity drives with, all of them watching, none of them moving. And then she found him. The final betrayal. Garrett Blackwood stood 20 feet away, still in his tailored Milan suit, dark hair silvering elegantly at the temples. The man she'd married 5 years ago in a ceremony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The man who'd written his own vows about partnership and protection. The man who'd promised in front of 200 guests, and God himself to shield her from every storm life might bring. He was holding up his phone, recording, smiling. Not a shocked smile, not a confused smile, not the expression of a husband witnessing his pregnant wife's humiliation. A satisfied smile, the smile of someone watching a plan come together exactly as intended. Garrett. His name tore from her throat like something with claws. Garrett, help me. Please. He didn't lower the phone. He adjusted the angle instead, made sure he was getting the full scene. Her exposed body. Her desperate hands clutching torn fabric. Her face contorted with confusion and dawning horror. Vanessa circled her slowly, deliberately. A predator sizing up wounded prey. Poor thing, Vanessa's amplified voice dripped with mock sympathy. Did you really think he loved you? Did you really believe any of it was real? Lise couldn't speak. Her throat had closed around the words. He's been mine for 18 months, Vanessa continued, her heels clicking against the marble floor. 18 months. Every conference where he was too busy to call. Every late night at the office. Every time he said he was too tired to touch you. She stopped, directly in front of Lise, close enough that Lise could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral that would haunt her dreams. He was with me every single time. The rescue and the revelation. Lise's knees buckled. A server, young, maybe 22, his face pale with shock, caught her elbow. He was the only person in the room who seemed horrified rather than entertained. Ma'am, let me help you. His voice shook. Ma'am. Security appeared moments later. The head of security, Marcus Chen, a man she'd personally written a thank you note to last December, gripped her arm with professional firmness. Ma'am, we need you to leave. You're causing a disturbance. The words didn't make sense. She was causing a disturbance. She, the woman half naked and crying in front of 400 people, was the problem. I'm his wife, she whispered, the words sounding absurd, like she needed to remind someone, like she needed to prove she belonged here. I'm Garrett's wife. This is supposed to be our party. Not for long, Garrett finally spoke, still filming, still smiling. I want this documented for legal purposes. My mentally unstable wife attacked my colleague in front of 400 witnesses. The crowd shifted, a collective movement toward agreement. Murmurs rippled through the ballroom, whispers of pregnancy hormones and unstable and poor Garrett. What a burden. They believed him, all 400 of them. They believed the lie. Security escorted Lise through a service entrance, past kitchen staff who averted their eyes, past servers who whispered to each other as she passed. Someone draped a coat over her shoulders, heavy wool, men's cut, probably belonging to one of the valets. The October air hit her face like a slap when they pushed through the service exit. Cold, sharp, real in a way nothing else felt real anymore. She stood on the sidewalk outside the Grand Monarch Hotel, barefoot despite the flats someone had given her. Her phone was inside her purse, her shoes, her coat, her dignity. Everything except the child growing in her belly and the coat some stranger had thrown over her shoulders. A black sedan pulled up to the curb. The Montgomery family car. Samuel Rodriguez emerged from the driver's seat, 62 years old, with her family for 30 years. He'd taught her to drive when she was 16. Picked her up from college when she was homesick. Driven her to her wedding 5 years ago. He took one look at her face and didn't ask a single question. He simply opened the door, helped her inside with the gentle hands of someone who'd known her since childhood, turned the heat up high, handed her a bottle of water and tissues, and asked one question. Where to, Miss Lease? She opened her mouth to say the penthouse, the place where her clothes hung next to his, where their wedding photos held pride of place on the mantel. The word wouldn't come. My parents' house, she whispered. Take me home. Take me to my real home. Samuel nodded, made a phone call on his Bluetooth in low tones she couldn't quite hear, probably alerting her parents, preparing them for what was coming. Lise pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the car window and watched the city lights blur past. She was already planning while dying inside, already calculating, already becoming someone new. She didn't know yet what her father had been doing for the past 18 months. She didn't know about the investigators, the evidence, the carefully constructed case waiting in his study. She didn't know that the hunter was about to become the hunted. But she would soon find out. When Liz walked through those doors into her childhood home, she had no idea that her father had been watching Garrett Blackwood's every move for 18 months, building evidence, building a case, building something far more devastating than humiliation. By sunrise, $800 million would vanish. The merger would collapse. Federal agents would be at Garrett's door, and the man who tried to destroy his pregnant wife would be in handcuffs. But what happens in part 2 will shock you far more than tonight's betrayal. Stay with us. The real story is just beginning. She was a pregnant woman whose husband destroyed her in front of 400 people. He filmed it. He smiled. He thought he'd won. But Lise Montgomery didn't know that her father, a man who built a $4 billion media empire, had been watching her husband for 18 months. And by sunrise, everything would change. The Montgomery estate had always felt like sanctuary to lies, the smell of wood fires crackling in every fireplace, her father's cherry-scented pipe tobacco, her mother's jasmine perfume applied even at 2 a.m., because Charlotte Montgomery never appeared less than composed. But as Liz stumbled through the foyer, her legs gave out. Her knees hit the hardwood floor, the impact jarring through her spine. 7 months pregnant, off balance, terrified. Charlotte caught her before she collapsed completely. Strong arms wrapping around her daughter. The voice of a woman who'd spent 23 years as a federal prosecutor, putting away cartel leaders and corporate criminals. I've got you, baby. You're safe now. But Lise wasn't thinking about safety. Her words came out in gasps. He was smiling. He was filming it like it was funny, like our whole marriage was just a joke. That's when Theodore Montgomery appeared in the doorway of his study, 61 years old. Silver hair. The man who'd never once raised his voice to his daughter. The man whose quiet strength could make boardrooms fall silent, now looking at his pregnant daughter with an expression she'd never seen before. Controlled fury. Lice. Come sit down. We have things to discuss. Theodore's study was exactly as Liz remembered from childhood. Leather chairs worn soft with decades of use. A mahogany desk imported from England. Walls lined with books he'd actually read, with notes in the margins and dog-eared pages. She sank into the chair nearest the fire, the same chair where she'd sat when her hamster died, when she didn't get into her first-choice college, when her first serious relationship ended. Her mother draped the familiar cashmere blanket over her shoulders. Her father poured water from a crystal pitcher. "Tell us everything," Theodore said, sitting across from her. "Leave nothing out." The words came in fragments. The gala, the ice sculpture, Vanessa pulling at her dress, Garrett's smile, the 400 witnesses doing nothing. Her parents exchanged a look. Quick, meaningful, the kind of look that couples develop after decades of marriage, a whole conversation in a single glance. Lise Theodore leaned forward. "How much do you know about Blackwood Technology's actual financial position?" "What? His company is worth 3 or 4 billion? We don't discuss business." Garrett always said he preferred to keep work and personal life separate. Theodore reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a folder. Thick. Manila. Worn at the edges like it had been handled hundreds of times. Your husband isn't just a cheater, Liz. He's a fraud. And he's been planning tonight for a very long time. What followed was the systematic destruction of every illusion Liz had built her life upon. Photographs. Dozens of them. Garrett and Vanessa in restaurants, hotels, the back of cars, holding hands, kissing, bank statements for accounts she'd never heard of, transfers to companies with names that meant nothing, numbers with too many zeros, email printouts, conversations between Garrett and people she didn't recognize, discussions of shell companies, offshore accounts, exit strategies. I've known since your second trimester. Theodore's voice was heavy with the weight of what he'd been carrying. I hired private investigators when you first told us about the pregnancy. Something felt wrong about how Garrett reacted, like you'd handed him a problem instead of a gift. Lisi thought back to that moment, the pregnancy test, the tears of joy. She'd expected joy from him. Instead, she saw now what she'd missed, the quick calculation behind his eyes, the forced smile. The way he'd immediately started talking about financial planning and prenuptial considerations. He hadn't been happy. He'd been adjusting his timeline. The affair started 14 months before you got pregnant, Charlotte said, picking up one of the photographs. Vanessa Drake wasn't brought into the company by accident. She's not just his mistress. She's his partner in financial fraud. Theodore pulled another document from the folder, a spreadsheet covered in red numbers. Blackwood Technologies has been insolvent for over 2 years. Your husband has been running an elaborate Ponzi scheme, moving money between shell companies, falsifying earnings reports, lying to investors, board members, and government regulators. He laid out the full scope of the conspiracy. The $800 million merger with Next Gen Technologies scheduled to close Monday. The plan, complete the merger, cash out his position, and disappear before anyone discovered the fraud. But what does that have to do with tonight? Liz whispered. With what he did to me? The answer made her blood run cold. Your prenuptial agreement states that in case of divorce, you receive 30% of his company's value plus your trust fund, Charlotte explained. If the company is worthless because of fraud, 30% of nothing is nothing. You'd walk away with only your trust fund. That's still $150 million, Liz said. But if you were declared mentally incompetent before the divorce was finalized, Theodore continued, his voice like ice, the prenup would be void. A court-appointed guardian would manage your assets, including your trust fund. The pieces clicked together slowly, horribly, like watching a car crash in slow motion. Tonight wasn't random cruelty. It was calculated destruction. Theodore pulled out draft paperwork, a petition for emergency psychiatric commitment, names of doctors willing to testify that she showed signs of prenatal psychosis, a letter nominating Vanessa Drake as her financial guardian. He was going to give my baby to Vanessa? Lisa's voice broke. After having you declared mentally unstable, he'd position himself as the caring father. He'd take control of your assets, disappear, and start a new life with $800 million and your daughter. The room went silent. The fire crackled. The grandfather clock ticked steadily, marking seconds that felt like hours. This wasn't betrayal. This was attempted murder of her entire existence. What do we do? Lisa asked, her voice stronger now. How do we stop him? Theodore smiled for the first time that night. A smile that reminded her why powerful men had learned to fear her father. We don't have to stop him, sweetheart. He stopped himself. He opened another folder, thicker than the first. Federal forms, legal filings, evidence summaries. Tonight, he gave us everything we needed. The attack, the video he made, the witnesses he thought he'd bought. It's all evidence now. Evidence of conspiracy. Evidence of assault. Evidence of fraud. Evidence of attempted financial abuse. Theodore's voice hardened. By morning, Garrett Blackwood won't have a company. He won't have freedom. And he certainly won't have anything that belongs to you. Not your money. Not your reputation. And definitely not your daughter. Lice spent the rest of the night reading through 18 months of investigation. Surveillance reports documenting every meeting, every transaction, every lie. Each page a revelation. Each revelation worse than the last. She relived every memory that had been poisoned. The first anniversary dinner when he'd excused himself 3 times to take calls. The vacation in Cabo when he'd worked most of the trip. The night she told him she was pregnant, when she'd mistaken calculation for joy. She watched the sunrise from the study window. Orange and pink and gold streaking across the sky like a painting. The same sun that had risen on her wedding day. The same sun that would rise tomorrow and every day for the rest of her life. The world didn't care about her pain. It kept turning. It kept shining. It kept going. By 7:45 a.m., her phone buzzed. It wasn't from Garrett. It was from news alerts. Breaking. FBI arrests Garrett Blackwood on charges of securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Blackwood Technologies CEO's $800 million merger collapses amid financial investigation. Pregnant woman's viral video now key evidence in federal case against tech executive. By 9 a.m., Garrett had sent his final message, a one-line text from a holding cell, "I want my lawyer." He never got her response because she never sent one. Lice held her daughter for the first time in a hospital room at St. Luke's Medical Center. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. Innocent. Everything good in a world that had tried to crush her. She named her Sophia. Wisdom. Garrett Blackwood was convicted of 47 felonies. He faces 30 years in federal prison. Vanessa Drake made a plea deal and testified against him. The merger never happened. The company dissolved. Every victim of his fraud was made whole. Lise walked away with her trust fund intact, her reputation vindicated, and her daughter safe in her arms. But the greatest victory wasn't financial. It wasn't even legal. It was this: she chose to forgive herself. For trusting the wrong person. For being kind to someone who used that kindness as a weapon. For not seeing the signs sooner. She chose to stop punishing herself for believing in a man who'd betrayed her. Your intuition is powerful, but it can be deceived. People who hurt us often do so carefully, slowly enough that we doubt ourselves. If something feels wrong, investigate it. Don't ignore small warnings waiting for big proof. Trust the whisper inside you that says something's not right. Then take action to confirm it. The people with real power don't announce it. Theodore Montgomery didn't need to tell anyone he was dangerous. He didn't boast about his investigation. He didn't warn Garrett. He just worked quietly and let his results speak. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. The truly powerful wait, listen, observe, and then act with precision. Lesson 3. Kindness is a strength, not a weakness. Lise was kind. To servers. To security guards. To people most would dismiss. That kindness meant someone in the crowd, Brooke Sullivan, her best friend, was recording the whole thing, documenting Garrett's smile, the crowd's complicity. Her kindness had created the witness who would ensure justice. Never let anyone convince you that being good makes you weak. It makes you connected. And connection is power. Lesson 4. You cannot heal what you don't name. Lise didn't try to convince herself it wasn't that bad. She didn't minimize her pain or pretend she wasn't betrayed. She faced the full, terrible truth of what happened and what it meant. Only then could she move forward. Your pain is not weakness. Your willingness to acknowledge it is courage. Lesson 5. The greatest revenge is your own happiness. Garrett expected her to be broken. He expected her to fight, to be angry, to destroy herself trying to hurt him back. Instead, she focused on healing, on her daughter, on her future. In doing so, she became the strongest version of herself, something he could never touch again. Not everyone deserves your forgiveness, but you deserve your peace. Lise didn't forgive Garrett. She didn't reconcile. She didn't pretend it was okay. But she also didn't let his betrayal poison her future. She let the justice system handle him and focused on building her peace with her daughter. You don't have to forgive people to move forward. You just have to choose yourself. Community matters, but so does recognizing who shows up. 400 people watched Lisa's humiliation and did nothing. But one person, the server who tried to help, later testified for her. One person, her best friend, documented the truth. You don't need 400 people. You need the ones who show up when it counts. Invest in those people. They are everything. Lise Montgomery was betrayed by the one person she trusted most. She was humiliated in front of 400 people. Her world fell apart in a single night. But she didn't stay broken. Why? Because she had three things. First, she had people who loved her. Not 400 people who watched and did nothing, but real people who showed up. Her parents, her friend, even a stranger who tried to help. Second, she had clarity. She didn't deny what happened. She didn't minimize it. She faced it and understood it completely. Third, and most importantly, she had herself. She had the strength to survive, the courage to rebuild, the wisdom to know that his betrayal was about him, not about her worth. That's the lesson. And it's for you. You don't need Garrett Blackwood to experience betrayal. Maybe your betrayal came from a spouse, a friend, a family member, a boss. The details change, but the hurt is the same. You don't need 400 witnesses to make the pain real. Sometimes the deepest wounds happen in silence, where no one's watching but you. But here's what Lisa's story proves. You don't need 400 people to validate your strength. You don't need the world to acknowledge your pain for it to be real. You don't need revenge to win. You just need this: the clarity to see what happened, the courage to name it, the support of people who truly love you, and the wisdom to know that your future is not determined by someone else's betrayal. That's the real revenge. Building a life so good, so strong, so full of purpose, that the people who hurt you become insignificant details in your success story. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of your own version of Lisa's story, if you're still in the ballroom, so to speak, I want you to know something. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The worst moment of your life doesn't define your life. The betrayal doesn't define your worth. The humiliation doesn't define your future. There's a story being written right now, and it has 3 chapters. What happened to you, how you survived it, and who you became, because you did. You're reading the first chapter, but the chapters that come next, those are yours to write. So here's my question. What's the next chapter of your story going to be? Thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for letting Lisa's story touch your heart. And thank you for being the kind of person who believes in justice, in redemption, and in the power of people to overcome. We'll see you next time. Be strong, be brave, be you.